Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Venya and I am a teacher of English as a second language. And I teach English and live my life here in Los Angeles, California. But I also teach online. And just like you, I am not a native speaker of English. I was not born speaking this language. I actually acquired it and learned it. And that is a big part of the reason why I teach it now. And if you don't know me, one thing about me is I hate tests. I cannot stand tests, exams, or anything of that sort. However, at one point in time, in order for me to come here and live here and do what I do, I obviously had to take some, including, of course, this one, TOEFL. I like TOEFL the most out of all of them because, for me, as a really bad test taker, there were ways to go around the whole concept of testing and find ways to make it easier. And I don't like test preparation because it feels like you're almost putting your actual English studies on pause just to prepare for the test, because you have to learn the test and the structure and how it works and all of that stuff, and learn test specific information and acquire test specific skills. And I'm not about that. I don't like that. TOEFL is not our goal. It's gonna help us get there, but we're also gonna make our English better in the process and make the whole testing experience easier. That's what I'm all about. TOEFL preparation is something I teach offline as well at a school here in Los Angeles. But in this video, I will tell you about my experience taking TOEFL and some crucial tips for getting a really good score. If you're ready, let's begin. So in my life, I've taken the TOEFL test 3 times. The first time was the most important one for me because I needed it for college, for university, for school, basically here in the US, because they wanted to see proof that I, speak English. And to make a long story short, it was a very tricky time in my life. At the time, my progress in English was really fast because I went from basically beginner to intermediate in a very short time. But that was also because I was torturing myself with it. And I also had a lot more time because I was a teenager. So that went straight to my head and caused me to be a little too confident. Cocky is the word for it. I was cocky. I was just arrogant about it. And basically I was like, I'm the best. My English is the best. TOEFL, what is that? I don't need to prepare. And this is where I went wrong. Thank God my English skills were just enough to get a passing score for me to be able to go to school in the US. But I got 93, which is not bad at all. It's actually a really good score. I just know it could have been better had I actually prepared. But that was sort of like my first encounter with the test. Before that, I had no idea about what it was about. I only knew, the 4 parts. So just like the basic structure. Aside from that, I knew nothing. So pretty good for going into it blind, but again, if I were to do it again, I would have done it differently. I would have prepared, actually. And that's what you would think. The second time I took TOEFL was during COVID, when they first announced the TOEFL IBT Home Edition, and I was just curious about it. And I also was curious to repeat the experiment and do it again, years later, without any prep. The only difference was I was doing it at home. And the score I got for that one was 111, which I was very happy about. I knew exactly where I went wrong that time and things that, I needed to work on and all of that stuff. So from there, my journey into getting to know TOEFL began. And I started researching and studying the test more, doing some practice runs at it, reading books and attending workshops and stuff like that, because I was just curious to find out, how this test works and how I was able to get a good score without preparation, and if I would be able to make it even better if I knew the test very well. And from there, I started teaching TOEFL and helping people with prep here and there, just a little bit. And I recently took TOEFL again a few months ago. And as much as I really wanted to prepare, I did prepare this time, but the only things that I did, I will talk about it later. I didn't do prep completely, but I did do prep this time. But this time I also wanted to do something different, another experiment. And I wanted to see if I could speed run through TOEFL and do it as fast as possible. Obviously, for the speaking part, you can't really do that because everything is perfectly timed. However, for reading, some of the listening and writing parts, I wanted to do it as fast as possible and see if I could cut my test taking time at least in half, which I did. But that caused me, of course, to make mistakes and not pay attention to a lot of things, especially in the reading and listening parts, which we will talk about later as well. But for the speed run of TOEFL, which I completed in a very short time, I got 109, which is still great. And here's what I did differently about the preparation. Well, first of all, I prepared. But here's what you can do to make sure you maximize your potential and get the highest score possible with your existing level of English. So test preparation should definitely include running simulations, which means mock tests. You just Google online, free TOEFL practice online and make sure it's the IBT version or the version that you are trying to take, and make sure it's updated because TOEFL does change, and the newest version of TOEFL, it changed pretty recently, but also it's been long enough, but just double check. It never hurts to double check. So you want to establish your baseline. I think it's very valuable to take a mock TOEFL test without preparing for it first, blind. I think it's very good to establish how far your current English skills can take you without knowing too much about the test. So that would be the first step. I think it's mandatory, I think it's necessary, I think everyone should do it. And after that, once you get your mock scores, speaking will be harder to assess, obviously, but you'll be able to see how well you do, at least on the reading and listening parts, just relying on your skills alone. And that will give you a lot of great information. Make sure you take screenshots and all of the things in terms of your results of the specific questions where you made mistakes. That's going to be very, very useful. From there, you can go ahead and start your official prep. There are a few books that I think are incredible for TOEFL prep. Of course, there's the official guide to the TOEFL test. That book is pretty solid. There's also TOEFL IBT. There's a lot of also internet videos and stuff like that. So you can actually start getting familiar with the actual test, the actual sections, and the actual question types. The TOEFL test has 4 different sections in this specific order, in order of appearance: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Given that it's split up into 4 separate sections, you obviously need to prepare for all of those sections separately. So let me give you some tips on how you can do that. Tip number 1, I think it's the most overlooked one, but do not limit yourself to only TOEFL prep resources. It's great to do, and it should not be ignored or neglected, but don't forget to just make your actual English skills better. You have the categories: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So you should definitely also practice those skills outside of the TOEFL context. The TOEFL reading part is not a walk in the park. It is definitely overwhelming, and the texts could be incredibly boring. And if you are not trained or experienced in reading boring academic text, you probably won't do well on it. So make sure you get familiar with articles and text of just that format in general. So read some academic texts about science or social science, arts, business, and other very smart topics. Of course, you can read Dune or Harry Potter. That's great too, but that's not gonna be on the test, unfortunately. So expose yourself to reading something of that nature for, I'm not gonna give you a time frame. Obviously, everyone is busy and everyone has things going on. So make sure you do it consistently, once a day. For how long, that's up to you to decide. I actually have a list of resources you can use for that specific purpose. You can read some science and culture-related articles on National Geographic, or you can visit websites of some American museums, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art has also articles and stuff like that up on the website. If you want to read about psychology, you can visit American Psychologist. I'll leave this list in the description box below, and you can just go crazy. In terms of listening, of course, listening to entertaining stuff is great, obviously, but also make sure you listen to smarter topic. I mean, I don't want to say that entertaining stuff is not smart necessarily, but you want to listen to more academic or serious topics, right? So if you can find audiobooks on those topics or podcasts, make sure it's somewhat interesting to you as well. You just need to get used to hearing stuff in that context. Tip number 2, and it starts with the listening part. Listening part is the first time you can actually take notes on the test. And taking notes is also a skill that you need to work on and really, really cultivate and develop, because you will be taking notes starting with the listening section until basically the end of the test. And it's very, very useful. So being able to structure your notes in a way that's easy for you to understand, using some short versions of words and symbols to replace some words, as well as just writing fast and being able to single out the most important, crucial information and write it down. Your ability to take notes is everything. Because think about it, in the listening section, the questions about the listening only appear after you're done listening. You cannot listen again. So you want to make sure you have some of those details down so you can reference that stuff when you're answering questions. And even if you have the best memory in the world, when you take TOEFL, you'll be stressed, you'll be nervous, and your memory might fail you. I'm just saying, if they're giving you this option, use it. Why not? The next tip is related to the speaking part. And the speaking part, I think, is the easiest one of them all. It's the shortest one of them all, but it's also the trickiest one of them all, because it sort of contradicts everything we know about the skill of speaking. When we think about speaking, we want to give full, detailed, long, thought out answers. Some of this stuff is still true for TOEFL, but the time limit is incredibly short. So you need to learn how to speak and express your ideas effectively in a very short amount of time. I'm talking, from 45 to 60 seconds. That's all you get. And I always recommend using templates. TOEFL has 4 speaking questions, and they're all the same type and the same format all the time. Speaking question type 1 could be a different question for different people, but the format is always the same. Speaking question type 2, 3, 4, same thing, right? So having that structure really, really helps. And you just sort of fill the blanks with what your topic is and what your answers are and what your opinions are. But the skeleton of it is already there. And that's exactly what I did in my most recent TOEFL prep. That was one of the main things I did. I put together these templates for all of those questions. I just created them on my own and I memorized them, and I just used them to be the most efficient speaker I can be while taking the test. Because I can just start talking. I can talk for 3 days straight. That's very easy. So my biggest problem was getting all of that, making it short and sweet, getting it all to fit in those 45 or 60 seconds that they give you. You get those templates, and then you just play around with them and you explore different types of questions, right? Question type 1, grab a template and just run a whole bunch of test practice runs with this template until you get comfortable, until you memorize it. That's how you memorize it. You don't just look at it and memorize it like a poem. No. You actually do it. You memorize it in action. And then you do the same thing for all 4. And if you want to look for practice sets of questions for TOEFL, I used TOEFL Bank, or there are some YouTube channels that are great. For example, TST Prep TOEFL is a great one for that. TOEFL Success is also a great one. Or you can just search TOEFL speaking practice on YouTube and find whatever. There's also a really cool app. It's called Speaking TOEFL, Speaking Questions and Answers. I'll show you on the screen and I'll link that stuff in the description as well. And by the way, the templates really work, because this most recent time that I took it, I did it with my templates that I created, and I got 30 out of 30 on the speaking section because I was on point. I mean, everything was just, I was hitting every mark, and it was beautiful, and the timing was just there. I felt really good about it. By the way, if you want to get your hands on those high scoring templates, I got you covered. In my brand new course, How to Score Over 100 on TOEFL Without Trying Too Hard, we cover it all. And in this course, we will master all of the sections and all of the question types. We will learn effective strategies for each section. You will learn essential TOEFL vocabulary that will help you give great answers for speaking and writing, as well as understand what's going on in the listening. And we will do a deep dive into each section, question type, and everything about the entire test. With my personal approach, you'll be able to tackle the TOEFL test and get a really nice score without trying too hard. You can sign up for it right now by clicking the link in the description box down below. And one more thing, if you sign up for the Pro package, you will definitely get the most in terms of materials, and you'll get to ask all kinds of questions. Speaking of questions, the next tip I have is about writing. And for writing, I also use templates, at least for the first section, the first part of the writing. And this is where your academic vocabulary will come in, as well as your ability to structure and write an essay about an academic topic. It is sort of specific, and it is very important to be able to use a certain type of vocabulary in terms of, academic subjects and discussions, as well as use transition words and expressions to make sure those different parts are very clear, are very clean, essay style. So get familiar with the way essays are supposed to be written, as well as everything it implies, meaning specific academic vocabulary, because you will be writing about something of that sort. And in terms of TOEFL vocabulary, there are 4 categories that you need to pay attention to. The first one is, of course, just core TOEFL vocabulary, or just core vocabulary in general, the most commonly used words and expressions in English, period. The second category is topic-specific vocabulary. You don't need to be a scientist to be able to talk a little bit about science. And you don't need to be an artist to be able to have a conversation about art. It's just all about being able to navigate certain vocabulary. And TOEFL is all about that. The third category is, of course, transitions. Those words, phrases, and expressions that help you smoothly get from one part to the next one. And number 4 is summary words and expressions. These help you sort of wrap it up in a nice way when you have to summarize something from reading or listening. Those expressions will help you pack it up in a nice packaging. Everything that you heard or read, you can just change it up and make it your own, and that's what they want you to do. We'll talk about the third and the fourth category in later videos, but right now, let's just talk about the first 2. Core vocabulary, I trust that all of you possess it already, so that's not an issue. However, academic specific vocabulary is tricky because TOEFL as a test is designed to test your English skills in an academic environment, because you need to take it in order to go to school. So you can study academic words and expressions with Quizlet cards. You can do exercises from 400 must-have words for the TOEFL test, or you can just watch YouTube videos. Do whatever you like best, just as long as you do it. The next tip is on the day of the test, forget about everything. I mean, no, that came out super wrong. Don't forget about everything, but don't try to do anything crazy. Just go over the templates maybe, but don't do anything else. Don't try to read anything crazy just to prepare. Don't try to listen to anything crazy just to prepare. Save your energy, because you're gonna need it. By the time you're done with the reading section, you're gonna be tired already. So make sure you rest, you relax, you focus, and you have the capacity to do it. Because another part of the test that people don't talk about is how long it is and how much you have to do just to get through the reading part and then the listening part is next, it's hard to pay attention. And if you're tired, so the night before, don't go out drinking, don't party, make sure you get proper sleep, proper meals, stay hydrated, make sure you're at your best and you're in tip-top shape for TOEFL. And then go out drinking after you're done. But going over templates is fine, right? That's probably the only thing you should do. If you do the home edition one, I have a video about that as well. Make sure you just set up your equipment and hit all the requirements. They will tell you exactly what they want. Make sure you do exactly what they ask you for. So allow yourself some extra time before you do it, before the actual appointment time, to make sure everything is good, everything is working, and you hit all of the requirements that they are asking you to hit. And then just breathe, calm down, and trust yourself. You've done all the preparation. That's it. It is a big deal. It is a life-changing test. I'm not going to lie to you. Of course it is. But here's the thing. If you have the ability to take it again, I recommend that you take it again as well after some time. Don't wait too long. Obviously, you might not have a lot of time, but I would suggest that you do it again because of something called My Best Score. And My Best Score is one of the best things ever, because here's what they do. Let's say you took it twice, and maybe your scores were roughly the same, but your scores for individual sections were different. The My Best Score feature combines your best performing sections together in one big Frankenstein test score. So that's the one you can officially send to schools. So what I'm trying to say is, before you take it, don't be nervous, don't freak out. This is not permanent, this is not forever, and it's not the final and the last time they will allow you to do it. You can do it again, and you can get the best score possible through the My Best Score system. I think that's great. So just trust that you got what it takes. Breathe, relax, make sure there are no distractions, and get to it. Take your time, but also don't take too long. The timers are there, you are being timed. Just do everything with grace, positivity, and confidence. And here's the best part about it. After you're done, you get your reading and listening results right away. So you kind of already know what to expect. And then a little later, in a few days, you will get everything else, the rest of it. You can get it mailed straight to the schools that you want. You can get it mailed to you. And you can also just get it online. And if you're not happy about it, try to take it again and see if your My Best Score thing will work for you. And I already know if you take it again, it'll be even better. Because here's the thing, the more you do it, the better you become. So before that first time, make sure you do a lot of practice tests. Because it's not only about the sections. Remember, it's also about just the concept itself. Sitting in one place for a couple hours, staring at the screen, reading off the screen, listening to stuff that probably is not interesting to you. That's a whole activity. So make sure you are used to it and make sure you're in good shape to do it. And this is everything I have for this specific video. This is how I got, so my scores, I got 111 and then I got 109. So, and if I combine it into my best scores, I get 115, with those sections being 30 out of 30 for reading from my previous one where I didn't do a speed run, 26 out of 30 for listening from my previous time as well where I didn't do a speed run, but I also forgot to take notes. 30 out of 30 for speaking for the most recent time when I had the templates, and 29 out of 30 for writing for this most recent one. Again, I had the templates, but also the second question is new now and it's much easier. And we will talk about all of that in detail in later videos. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any TOEFL questions or anything like that you want me to cover in the future videos, make sure you leave it in the comments down below. And I truly enjoy TOEFL. I hate tests and exams, but I really like TOEFL because you can make it very productive for yourself. You can nail the test and you can also make your English better at the same time. And that's what I love about it. But you just gotta do it right. And if you're here, subscribe, and we'll do it right. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.